Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I will be speaking about how to approach one of the most common piano accompaniment in the left hand. It's been a while since I posted some tutorials, I'm really sorry about that, but I didn't forget about you. I was just a bit busy lately, but here we go. Let's look at an accompaniment that is very typical in valses, in mazurkas, nocturnes, and a lot of different genres actually. So basically it's when you have a bass and then some chords, like in this beautiful Chopin's valse in A minor that I'm going to show as an example. So in order to play that without any problems, we have to use the weight of the hand properly and efficiently. So what is very important here is leaning toward the bass, towards your fifth finger when you approach that bass. Just make sure that you have a very pleasant sensation of resting on the key, on the bed of the key. And then releasing your hand and transferring the weight of the hand toward the thumb. So we have to turn our wrist just a little bit. So I would feel support on the thumb. So those 2 points, fifth finger and the thumb, are very important here. And it's actually useful to learn such spots like that. So just playing those 2 voices, fifth finger and thumb, and making sure that you transfer the weight of the hand between these principal fingers in this case. It's also very important because when we have such chords, it would sound much nicer if we would voice the upper voice among these chords. So for example, that sounds bad. I'm sorry for that bad example, but I just wanted to make you aware that if you don't voice these chords properly. So for example, in this spot, Chopin even makes this voice kind of important because it has the line on its own. So we are always following it. But even if you don't have any movement in this voice, nevertheless, these chords would sound much better if you voice them properly. So as you see, working with the weight of the hand and transfer it properly between the fifth finger and the thumb, we are killing 2 rabbits actually with 1 shot, because we are making this accompaniment more efficient, more pleasant to play, more comfortable, but also we make it more musical. We make it sound better. If you have to hold the bass, like in this spot, I have to hold the bass and then reach a distant note that has the voice on its own, this upper voice in a chord. It's better to approach it not horizontally, so not like that, because you see that in this case I would have stretch. And although this distance is not problematic for me, but nevertheless approaching it horizontally makes me feel uncomfortable. So in order to reach this distant chord, I would have to free up my hand while holding the fifth finger. So I lean toward the fifth finger and then I free up my hand completely, like that. And then I try to reach that distant note using this kind of trajectory, reaching it from above, not horizontally, but... and somehow it's much easier. That trajectory thing actually works also for movement between a chord and a bass. So for example, here when you have, especially when you have wider distances like here, like I have pretty big leaps here. So I should think not only about transferring the weight between the fifth finger and the thumb, but I also should find a comfortable trajectory, because in piano playing, horizontal movements between positions are not really comfortable. So if you would stick to the keys, as many students do, of course you would feel uncomfortable. Like might see that it looks actually quite ugly, and I don't feel comfortable at all, and you can feel it actually watching my playing. So what is very important here is to find a nice trajectory between the chord and the bass, and this trajectory would always be so not horizontal but a ballistic one, let's say. With the last chord of the group, before moving to the bass, I have to free up my hand and release my fingers and move my wrist first and staying as relaxed as possible in the lip and approaching that bass from above and leaning toward that bass from above with a stable finger but cushioning the shock with the wrist. So I have support in the knuckle, flexible wrist, and I go all the way to the bottom of the key, even if I want to play really very softly. So I want to produce as soft a sound as possible, but nevertheless I would still go to the bottom of the key because that gives me a sensation of control and comfort. So at least when you leap down to the bass, I would definitely use this trajectory. That's a good question, whether you have to use the same trajectory when you go up to the chord. It's worth trying and experimenting with that, actually, I would say. But for me personally, the most comfortable trajectory here would be releasing the hand after the bass and moving it more horizontally, transferring the weight to the thumb, and then after the chord using this wider trajectory. So I approach the chord more horizontally and then use that trajectory, and that gives me this flow, this circle between the bass and the chord. Same thing here, for example, I have to hold this bass and reach a distant chord, so instead of trying to approach it horizontally, I will open my hand trying to reach it from above. It's very similar for the accompaniment of Chopin's Nocturne in E flat major. So here we also have to lean toward the bass properly, feeling stability in the finger, cushioning the shock with the wrist, and then transferring the hand, releasing it in the lip and leaning toward the upper voice. But in this case, we would lean toward the second eighth note here, and that chord would be softer because we have that wave that should be played on diminuendo. That's why the leaning point would be here, while the second chord among this group will be softer. But nevertheless, that support is very important. So transferring the weight from the fifth finger toward the second finger, and also making sure that the upper voice is slightly better produced, slightly louder than the lower one. So we have to build these chords as well, and that's why we have to shift the weight of the hand toward the right side of it as well. And for those distant basses, when you have to go very far away through the keyboard, in order to hit that note and not to miss it, you might also consider rotating your wrist like that. So don't move the whole arm, but rather rotate the wrist, and you would approach that note with a quite sharp angle. So it's not aligned to the key, but turned aside. And then, of course, we need to feel stability in this knuckle. So we would stand on the finger. And for this purpose, we have to reach the bottom of the key, because that gives you a sensation that you are secure, that you are standing on your ground.